Are you a sinner just because you don't do something good? We're going to talk about that next, coming up in The Forge. Well, hello and welcome back once again into the King's Forge. I'm Randy, and today we're going to be talking about an interesting passage. I'm going to be reading today from the book of James in chapter 4. And this is talking about warning us about becoming worldly, about, we're admonished to be in the world, but not of the world. So these are some warnings about worldly behaviors. And it says in chapter 4, what causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have, because you do not ask. And you do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. Oftentimes, we have a lot of things that we want. Nice cars, nice houses, big fancy this and or that. When more often than not, a simple, effective, efficient automobile that gets us from point A to point B is sufficient. That's what we need. And what we want is something that gets us from point A to point B and is very flashy and has great paint and sits like a couch and drives like a dream and gets, as much gas mileage as possible. Oh, it has perfect climate control. And let's not forget the latest in sound system. We've got to have that, right? And then the ability maybe to watch videos when we're not driving. That's probably got to be in there. The ability to go really fast, really quickly. We want to go to 0 to 60, right? We got to have that. You get where I'm going with this. Those aren't things that we necessarily need. But there are a lot of times the things the world tells us we need. And we listen to them. And we shouldn't. We should be able to know what we need, what we want. And we should at times be able to look at things of luxury, knowing we can do without those things, that they're not needs, they're simply wants. Continuing on, goes on in verse 6, excuse me. He gives more grace, therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. What James is saying in this scripture is that when we encounter those things that we really discern that are causing that conflict within us, to take account of our actions. When he says wash your hands, he means be careful what it is that you're doing. Pay particular attention to what you're doing, that your actions remain pure and purposeful and not falling into the desires of your flesh. Okay? That you're looking out for those things that you need, those things God promised he would provide us, everything that we need. And so if we ask according to our genuine need, God says you will have it. He doesn't say, I'm going to give you everything you want. Matter of fact, if he gave us everything we wanted, we'd probably destroy ourselves with it. Unfortunately. But he's going to make sure that we have those things which we need, and those things which we are responsible with, he's going to continue to bless us with more of those things. He promises that also in his word. Moving on, still in chapter 4, we're just going to jump to verse 11 here. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. Ooh. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. Now, this judge does not mean, when he says to judge the law, it doesn't mean that you are trying to find fault with a law that's written in the Bible. It's not saying that you are trying to discern whether or not what God has said is truthful and right and just. What it means is basically to execute. In other words, you have the law in front of you, and you are being the executor of that law, the executor of that law. The word in Greek is krino, and it's a verb. As a judge would in a court of law would execute judgment based on what the law is. He would say the law says this, and therefore this must happen. That's what he's saying. But what's interesting about this passage is it tells us as believers we shouldn't even use the law to announce judgment on somebody else. We're not supposed to point our fingers and say, ah ha ha, you broke the law. See, the law was written for us as individuals so that we could understand. Me, as a man, can read that law and understand I've got a problem. I can understand that many people may be in the same shoes that I'm in, if not all, because the word says all men have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So if the word says that, then I can trust that that's the case, and I don't have to know which law or how many somebody else has broken. We've all broken at least one, and we're all just as guilty. And then it says here in verse 12, there is only one lawgiver and judge. Only one. He who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? We often really get this messed up. We are not to sit in judgment of our neighbor, even when they do wrong. If they've done something wrong, we are to go to help them overcome that, but not to hold it against them. If I see somebody who is in any type of sinful behavior, sin is bad for us. So those things that are engaged that the word says is going to harm us or cause us to fall into such a state of disrepair that we begin to harm others in our relationships and our lives and all those sort of things that sinful behaviors lead to, then my job as a believer and a Christian is not to point fingers and make that person feel condemned and hated and unwanted and unworthy. My job is to go to them and say, how can I help you overcome this problem? I can't beat him up. It's not my job. My job is to help him, to love him, to pick him up when I see that he's fallen. And if he rejects my help, I don't want your help. It's not my position nor my responsibility to force my will on anybody else. I have to be respectful of that and go, okay, well, if you ever change your mind on that, you call me and I'll be here to help you if you decide you want my help. That's my job as a Christian. My job is not to point fingers at people. We get that wrong. I'm going to repeat that verse again so we remember that. And this is James. We're in chapter 4, verse 12. There is only one lawgiver and one judge, he who is able to save and destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? And then I'm going to go down here to verse 16, and I encourage you to read the rest of this chapter on your own time. It's fascinating to read, and it's great instruction for us not to fall into the trappings of the world. But in the interest of time today, we're going to go straight to 16. As it is, you boast in arrogance. All boasting is evil. 17. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. And how do we know what the right thing is to do? Well, we read what the Word tells us and admonishes those things that the Bible declares are good. We are to do those things, and those things that the Bible admonishes us to stay away from, to eschew from, not to do, and those things that are bad, and we're not to do those things. And so we're not supposed to condemn each other. We're not supposed to judge each other. We're not supposed to have harsh words. We're not supposed to fight. We're not supposed to be in contention. We're not supposed to covet. We're not supposed to speak evil against our brother. We're not supposed to speak out. No, gossip is probably, if not the most destructive thing we have. We can ruin lives and careers and families with a single sentence about somebody sometimes, and we are foolish if we think that when we speak something about somebody, basically we're doing one of two things. We're seeking to inform that person, or we're seeking to show off our knowledge. Let's just be honest. I want to show you what I know, share with you what I know. And I'm not saying show to be boastful. I'm saying show as in to demonstrate, this is what I learned. Sometimes it may be boastful, and that's a whole different sin of pride. Or we're trying to influence that person's opinion. We should never really be trying to do that. I'll give you information. In fact, you make up your own mind. My job is not to influence you. My job is to share my truth with you. I can share my opinion with you. And I want you to discern what is truth and absorb that, discern what is opinion, and you're free to disagree with it, and you're free to inform me of what your opinion is. And if I find merit in that, and that melds with the truth, then I more than likely would change my stance. So that's how we sharpen each other. That's how we grow. That's how we live in unity together. We don't have to always see eye to eye to live together in peace and unity. We can agree sometimes to disagree peacefully. But we should always seek to do those things that we know to be good things when we see them and when we encounter them. It's just a little something for you to think about today. We love having you tune in to our broadcasts here in the Forge, whether they be on video or on podcast. If you are blessed by what you're seeing and what you're hearing, please like, subscribe into whatever format that you enjoy hearing us on. Hit the bell and get the reminders of updates whenever we post new content. And continue to join us here in the Forge. We want to see you happy. We want to see you blessed in the place where Jesus is King, and we are submitted to His work and willing to be molded, shaped in the craftsman's hands. Stay with us. Keep coming back. Thank you.